Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategic Organization Design Trends. What is the right organization design? You should be seeing a viewing window on the left of your screen, and the control panel should be on the right. Under the View option, you can make selections on what you would like to see. Reed will be sharing his webcam. If you find that the transmission is lagging sometimes turning off the webcam view can help with that. All attendees today will be muted, and so please ask your questions via the question box on the control panel, and Reed will do his best to answer those as we go through today's presentation. You can collapse the control panel by using the orange arrow at the upper left of the panel. If you would like to receive SHRM PDCs for participating in the webcast today, please make sure that you complete the survey that will launch once we've ended the webinar. If you have any difficulty with this, go ahead and email me, Bonnie Saxey. Just reply to the reminder email that was sent to you. And then lastly, the slides for today's webinar and the recording will be available early next week, and we will send you an email with the direct links to those. So, Reed.
Thank you, and hello to everyone. Thank you for joining today. Really excited for today's discussion, and I hope that as we go that people will chime in with questions and comments. I know it's hard in this setting to do that real time, but if you'll type in your questions, I'll do my best to respond to those as we go. Now, the reason I'm so excited for this topic is because as we get ready to close out 2017 and head into a new year, you know, I think a lot of us in the field and just frankly out in the organizations that we work in are confronted with questions like, well, what's next, and how are all the different trends and issues that we're reading about and that we're feeling in our organizations going to impact our organization. So I'd like to spend some time on that subject today. For those that are not as familiar with AlignOrg Solutions and what we do, I'd like to just kind of introduce our work and our specialization. We do work in the area of organization design for sure. That's sort of our bread and butter. And around that, we help organizations clarify their strategic positioning. We help them diagnose the capabilities in their organization and how effectively they're set up to compete. And then we help with organizations as they try to implement change and affect the improvements that they're looking to do in their organization. The other thing that we do, in addition to our consulting work, which allows us to be able to get inside of organizations and see how things work and to practice and try all of the different things that we talk about in these webinars, is we do a lot of capability building in the hopes of building a cadre of professionals out there that are familiar with and comfortable with the topics and tools and frameworks related to the profession of organization transformation in a broad sense. And so that's a large part of what we do as an organization. Now today in our webinar, you know, we'll refer to various organizations that some of which we've had the chance to work with, some of which we all read about and see in the news. These organizations are ones that are trying to solve for the kinds of issues and challenges that we'll be talking about today. You know, how do you digitize an organization? How do you adopt Agile work principles and things of that nature? And so you're probably in like organizations that are trying to wrestle with similar questions. And so hopefully we'll have some stories and case studies from these and other organizations that will help us unpack these issues. So let's dive into our agenda for today. There's sort of three big questions or themes that we're seeing confront organizations. About a month ago, I was in the conference board, and we were having our two-day organization design conference, and at that session, we saw these topics come up quite a bit. And so let me kind of highlight the ones that I'd like to spend time on today. I recognize that in just a 45-minute to an hour broadcast, we can't get through every possible theme or trend that is going on. But if you've got questions or you're seeing a different theme or trend that is impacting your organization, feel free to shoot me an email or send a question in, and we'll do our best to try to dive into that as well, because All of these things, require us to think sometimes a little differently about how we approach organization change. Three topics that or trends that we're seeing that are really shaping the way organizations are working. The first is really how will agile ways of working continue to transform how organizations innovate and deliver value. That's a topic that throughout the entire year this year we've been trying to cover. We had a whole separate webinar on agile organization design. We put out a guide on how to think about that same topic. So I want to explore that just a little bit further as it pertains to how organizations are looking at adopting agile principles, not just for organization design and transformation, but throughout their organization as a way of working to shape culture and improve the way the organization delivers results. The second big topic is, as no surprise to probably anyone on this session today, is what is going on with digital transformation, and what does that mean for competitive strategy and the design of traditional organization capabilities and functions. It feels like a big rock. It feels like when that rock drops in the pond, it's leaving a lot of ripple effects. There's a lot of talk about it. It's going to require a lot of investment and new ways of thinking, and so I'd like to sort of get into that subject a little bit as well and see how that might be able to inform our thinking as we go into the new year. And then finally, recently, a month or two ago, we did a discussion on virtual connected organizations. And that was a follow-up really from a webinar we did, I believe, in late 2016 that dealt with platform business models. But what we're seeing, obviously, is a trend toward much more virtual organizations being created to deliver value, and how that is an innovative way to leverage resources and expertise. But it comes with some complexity and some new ways of how you govern and control those organizations. And so we want to talk about those impacts as well. So those are the three major themes that we want to dive into in some depth today. So without further ado, let's dive into the topic of Agile and Agile ways of working. Most of us are familiar with the idea of Scrum. Scrum, of course, is a term that's picked up from the game of rugby that applies to the image that you're seeing now on the screen, which is the players from the opposing teams come together, they lock arms, and they work in a very concerted manner to try to regain possession of the ball and begin to move the ball down the field to score a try. And in a very similar way, Agile is all about bringing the right people together in an organization to work in a very concentrated and focused way to be able to accomplish some sort of business objective. And the reason that Agile is getting so much attention, I believe, is that Agile does a couple of things. One of them is that it tries to concentrate energy into short bursts where innovation, creativity, and work can happen in an accelerated way, and that progress and performance can be increased. In fact, there are some studies now that are showing that work that's done, like software development or product development, that's being done in agile ways are producing productivity gains as high as 300%. Now that seems pretty extreme, but what that really is saying is that instead of seeing, say, a software development cycle that might last months, 9, 12, 15, 18 months, we're now seeing some cycles being as quick as a few weeks or maybe a month or two, which is a pretty substantial productivity increase. Another reason why we're seeing a lot of uptick in agile ways of working is because it's about bringing the right talent together to co-create a solution that's better than any one department or group could on their own create. And so it's really about trying to unleash the best thinking and talent and to generate the insights that are going to create competitive breakthroughs. And the third thing that is appealing, I think, for folks and organizations is that Agile is pushing on traditional organization designs and structures. And it's saying, look, we need more adaptive and flexible ways to work together. How do we share resources? How do we move things around in the organization? How do we mobilize to get something done and then disband and move on to the next thing that is important? And so these are the reasons why Agile is getting, so much attention, I believe. And what we're seeing in a lot of organizations is that, yes, the whole Agile movement started in software because, folks were trying to say, how do we do this better? Every time, one of the biggest knocks we saw on software development in the past was that it took months to do, if not years. And when we finally launched the solution, it seemed to be wrong. It was outdated, it had missed key requirements, or something in the meantime had changed that, the development process was unable to accommodate. And so Agile is really an attempt to respond to those dynamics and say, is there a better way for us to do this work and get better outcomes? Well, as software development has improved and we're seeing more rapid cycles and better deliverables coming out of that space, people are asking the same question, can't we do this in product development? Or can't we do this in even organization design or organization transformation? And so organizations now are asking the question, can we change our culture to now start to adopt some of the principles that Agile software development is based upon? In other words, can we figure out ways to concentrate our energy as an organization on the critical few things and knock them out rather than having them last for an entire year or a multi-year planning horizon? Is there a way to really pull talent and thinking from across the entire organization to unleash some of the best thinking and creative insights? If you think about some of the large organizations out there, a few years back, we did some work with one of the large technology firms in Silicon Valley. And one of the things that they were trying to do was to figure out how do they tap into their 85,000 plus employees, because they were making so many external hires to bring folks in that they thought were good and talented to address strategic needs. And they said, we've got 85,000 people in our organization that are probably already some of the best and brightest people, but we don't unleash them. We don't pull them forward to work together on the right things at the right time. And so those types of organizations are now asking the question, can we adopt Agile as a way of working? So when we look at doing an organization transformation, for example, we're looking at them now in terms of how do we break them down into iterations, because Agile is about trying to take a discrete piece of work and break it down into an iteration where we can work an issue, come forward with a recommendation or an answer, vet that with the organization and put it into practice, and then repeat as needed. And so we would rather do multiple iterations if we can move and accelerate the pace of change. And that's the way organizations are wanting to work. The way we see that play out is you have to have a clear owner for whatever it is you're trying to produce that's got clarity around what's the vision and what are the features we're trying to produce. Let's bring the right people together, of course, and then let's get somebody who can facilitate and guide this group to accomplish the key deliverables in what we refer to as a sprint. When we see this happen in an organizational context around any other body of work, like an organizational transformation or even product development or a project even, what we're now starting to see is let's identify our sponsor, let's lay out a clear strategy, let's have some guardrails or design criteria, let's get somebody in charge of facilitating the work of this team, and then let's get them into intense work sessions so that we can get the work accomplished in a more accelerated fashion.